Well, guys, here we are. A rematch of the best game in the Pac 12 this season in a Pac 12 conference that surprised a lot of people in its last year, the last Pac 12 championship ever. Washington and Oregon really have been on two completely different tracks since they played, Drew. Oregon continuously dominating every team they play. Dan Lanning is really trying to get Bo Nix that Heisman. And on the other side, Washington, Penix and that offense, they have not been firing on all cylinders like they were in that Oregon game and leading up to it. So, Drew, when you look at this Washington team, which you called in the preseason probably could be a playoff contender, what do you think happened after that Oregon game that's led to the offensive mishaps?
Yeah, Aiden, when you look at this Washington team and you look at the struggles they've had in their previous few games, most notably, when I look at this Washington team, I'm looking at Michael Penix. Obviously, Michael Penix is a great quarterback. He's still a Heisman candidate. And honestly, probably the winner of this game is going to go on to, the quarterback that wins this game is going to go on to win the Heisman. But Michael Penix has not looked exactly the same as he looked like in the beginning of the season. He's throwing a lot of balls into tight windows and tight coverages, which as a great quarterback, those are things you have to do. Those are things that what separates you from, the average good quarterback. And when that's happening, it's almost like he's having too much trust in his receivers. Obviously, Rome Odunze, Washington wide receiver, probably one of the best wide receivers in college football, or at least top 3 or 4. A lot of these times, it's just not working out in their favor. When you throw a 50-50 ball, obviously there's a 50% chance you're going to come down with it, but in Washington's case in the past few weeks, it hasn't really been the case, and that's why you see Michael Penix's his completion percentage kind of fall off a little bit. I mean, you look at that Washington State game, 18 for 33. It has kind of been a common trend for him the past few games, and Washington's honestly been playing teams who I think Washington should have been winning these games a lot more than they should have. Now, I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if Washington's getting a little too comfortable with who they are and winning so much, and maybe that's why they've been kind of coming into these games lackadaisical. But at the same time, you're looking at Oregon, who's on a completely different track, dominating every single opponent they've played. And quite honestly, although they did lose that game on the road at Washington, there's a strong argument that could be made that Oregon really should have won that game. And really, that decision made by Dan Lanning to go for it on that 4th and 2 late in the game kind of costed them. Nonetheless, Washington got the win. They're sitting at 12-0. But it's crazy, Aiden. Oregon is 9.5-point favorites in this game. I know, like what I just said, Oregon and Washington are kind of on two different tracks. Oregon's dominating, Washington is not. But Washington's still a really good football team, and I don't think Michael Penix is too far gone from where he was at the beginning of the year. I just think he's just kind of had an unlucky and just a lot of errors in these games against lesser talented opponents that I don't think are going to show up in this game against Oregon.
Yeah, when you're as talented as Michael Penix is, you mentioned it, sometimes you can fall in love with the deep ball. And, you see the success that you've had at the beginning of the season, throwing the ball to Roma Dunze and him going up and getting it. You could fall in love with that success and, get a little bit overconfident and think that you can take those shots down the field rather than just giving what or taking what the defense gives you, like you were saying. And I feel like as far as the Washington's performance as a whole, I think they bought into their own hype a little bit. I think that they let the media and the outside people let them believe that they are as good as they believe they are. And it doesn't matter in college football, as you know, you can lose on any given Saturday. You have to go out and play at your absolute best every single Saturday. And especially when you're playing a team like Oregon, an Oregon team that has been putting it on these teams they're supposed to be putting it on to, like you mentioned. And you can't just turn it off and on when you have to. Even an Alabama cannot do that. You have to be continuously primed and get better throughout the season. And that's what this Oregon team has done, Drew. This Oregon team has continuously gotten better. They lost some of their players. They lost their second running back. And it's just been, next man up mentality for Oregon. Dan Lanning has done a great job keeping these players motivated and, having them go out and have these big performances against these lesser teams. The defense has looked better in every single game they played. Since Dan Lanning's got there at Oregon, the defense has taken a massive step forward. In the linebacker core, they are fast. Their safeties are fast to fill the run. They come downhill quick. So this is going to be a tough team to run the ball against, especially when you're talking about a Washington team that doesn't rely on the run too much. It is going to have to be through the air with Penix, and these two teams have already played each other. It is hard to beat a team twice when you have to pull out the plays that you've been saving for an Oregon, and they've already seen them. So they got film and have scouted it. The DBs know how the receivers like to play. So this Oregon team is primed, I think, to win the Pac-12 championship unless Penix can have a Heisman game, like you mentioned. But with as good as Bo Nix has been playing, they've been able to stay on schedule as the Oregon offense pretty much all year. They have been efficient as ever. And in that Washington game, you mentioned it, it came down to that 4th and 2, that one interception. Pretty much they scored on every single other drive. So both of these teams are going to have to be extremely efficient. And I'm just leaning towards Oregon right now because the efficiency has not been there for Washington.
And when we talk about efficiency, Aiden, we talk about Oregon's efficiency on offense. It starts with Bo Nix not turning the ball over. He's thrown 401 passes this season and only 2 interceptions. If you have a quarterback like that that's putting up unbelievable numbers and he's not giving away possessions, you're primed to win almost every single game you play. Bo Nix, confidence is a real thing. Bo Nix has always been a very talented quarterback, but the confidence he's been able to get from playing a lot of these Pac-12 teams, regardless of how good or bad their defenses are, has really made him take another step forward. And it's no secret, it's not a fluke on why he's putting up these great numbers. Bo Nix is a really good quarterback. And on top of that, we talk about it all the time, mobile quarterbacks, how hard it is to defend. I guess the team with a mobile quarterback is just a whole nother aspect that you got to worry about on defense. Bo Nix, along with Bucky Irving and the rest of the Oregon running game, is something that people don't talk about enough. It's great that Bo Nix is throwing 4, 5, 6 touchdown passes a game, but a lot of people seem to forget Oregon has a bunch of running backs that are averaging around 6, 7 yards per carry. And when you look at this Washington team, although their run game is not terrible, they don't have those stapler running backs that you can just rely on to control the clock that like Oregon can. And honestly, I think that's a big, big factor in this game. I feel like as good as Bo Nix has been playing, I'm honestly expecting this Oregon running game to take another step forward. I'm expecting Oregon to probably keep the ball on the ground a lot more than people probably would expect. In a game where stakes are high and pressure's on, it can get pretty difficult to throw the football. It's a lot easier to be able to have a run game travel with you than a passing game. And on top of that, Penix has not been in a situation where he's been as efficient because he's been, interceptions have been kind of a problem with Penix lately. I mean, you can look at a couple of games and look, well, Penix throwing multiple interceptions here and 3 interceptions in this game. You can't have that against this Oregon defense. If you're in a situation where you're giving this offense extra possessions, you could be looking at a situation, if you do that, you could be down double digits before you even know what's going on. Washington is a great offense. This isn't an offense where you can look at and be like, well, if they go down 2 scores, the game's over. That's not the case. But Oregon's a team that is showed that they only get better the more of a lead they have. The confidence just starts coming out. And once that playbook starts opening up for Oregon and the players and the offense is all clicking, it's almost impossible, it seems, to beat this Oregon team. I just don't have enough trust in Penix. With the way Bo Nix has been playing and the way Penix has been playing, I'm expecting an interception or 2 from Penix. I don't think he's going to be making a lot of the same mistakes that he's been making in terms of forcing the ball. But I just think that Oregon's defense is so good in disguising their coverages and how fast their linebackers move. Penix could still make some good reads, but this Oregon secondary is really talented, y'all. They're really fast. And I expect this Oregon defense to maybe find a way to get an interception or maybe force a fumble. And not to mention the pass rush that Oregon's had. Oregon's pass rush has been really good lately, too. If you can get pressure on Michael Penix, maybe not bring him to the ground, but you just get enough guys in his face to kind of make him throw an errant pass, you can trust that the secondary or one of these linebackers is going to be bound to make a play on a bad throw that Penix throws.
Yeah, Drew, and the number one thing with that Oregon run game, it's all centered around the O-line. That O-line has been good for what seems like a decade. That O-line coach has continuously done a great job, sent Penei Sewell to the league, and they have a tackle now that's ranked just as highly as Penei Sewell was coming out of Oregon. So it's all centered around that line to the point where it almost doesn't matter who the running back is, and then you add to the fact that you have a Bucky Irving and a stable of other running backs, it's going to be tough. And the hardest thing to defend as a defense in the run game is when the quarterback gets involved. And Bo Nix has been getting more and more touches in the run game. And whenever you play a great team, that could be what takes you over the edge. So this Oregon run game, you're 100% right. I do believe that they will lean on it. But at the end of the day, in the Pac-12 conference, it is a quarterback conference. And when I picked Washington in the first game, because Michael Penix was better than Bo Nix at that point in the season. Bo Nix has continuously gotten better, and that O-line's done a great job of protecting him. Bo Nix's only red flag for me is how he deals with pressure. At Auburn, it was horrible. Even at Oregon, some of those bad tendencies have stuck with them, but because that O-line's done such a good job of protecting him and Dan Lanning has done such a good job calling plays around him, you really haven't seen that. So with that being said, I just got to take the better quarterback. I don't think it'll be 9 points, but I'm taking Oregon in the win.
I'm with you on that. 9.5 points for a conference championship between two top six teams is just kind of crazy to me. These bookmakers must know something that we don't. I know, like I said already a couple times in this video, I know these teams are on kind of two different tracks and how they're winning football games. But at the same time, these are two really good quarterbacks, and Heisman, hopes are on the line here. And I will say this, if you're thinking of betting on this game and you're thinking of picking Washington on the money line, you might as well go ahead and buy you a ticket for Michael Penix winning the Heisman too, because I do believe whatever quarterback wins this game, barring they put up a decent performance, of course, is going to win the Heisman. You're better off betting on Michael Penix at, I think, plus 1,600 odds than betting on Washington, which I think right now is at like plus 270. So if you're looking at making money from this game and you're picking Washington to win, I wouldn't even bother touching Washington on the money line. Go buy you a Michael Penix Heisman ticket. Nonetheless, though, I just don't think Washington wins this game. The biggest thing you said, Aiden, that I agree with is it's hard to beat a great team twice. Very rarely in the history of college football have two great teams played each other in the same season and one team beats the other one 2 times in a row. It just doesn't happen very often. This is an Oregon team that's seeking vengeance. This is an Oregon team led by a good coach that it really gets the best out of his players. Oregon's ready to make the playoffs. They've been kind of on that team that people have been looking for in the Pac-12 to make that leap into the playoffs, and I think this is the year that they get it done. It's nothing against Washington. I'm not picking this because I think Washington's just not good anymore. That's not true. Oregon's going to win this game. I don't think they're covering that 9.5 points. I do expect this game to be a little bit closer than that. And probably, people are going to think I'm a little crazy when I say this. Don't be surprised if this game's a little bit more low scoring than you think, at least off the rip. Maybe in the fourth quarter, both teams start opening up a little bit. But I just think that's one of the main reasons why I think Oregon's not going to cover. I do expect this game to be just a little bit more low scoring, maybe a lot of field goals. Oregon's winning the game. They're not covering. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you haven't already, we already released a preview and prediction for the Georgia-Alabama SEC Championship game. Highly recommend you guys go take a look at that. We got a couple more conference championships that we're going to be doing as well. Be on the lookout for those. Hit that notification bell so you know when they go up, and we will see you guys in the next one.